Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the dense, steamy jungles of what is now Cambodia, where the towering spires of a forgotten empire rise slowly out of the mist. Crumbling temples, their stone faces cracked and smiling, peer out through tangles of banyan roots and birdsong. Somewhere beneath the moss and thyme, something stirs. The market sounds of a world long vanished spice-laden voices, creaking ox carts, the ring of coins, or something close to them. You're not here as a tourist tonight. You're here to trudge. You push through underbrush damp with last night's rain, brushing off vines like a sleepwalker clearing cobwebs. The air is thick with the musk of damp earth and some ghost of sandalwood. You smell it before you see it. Distant fires, fried rice cakes, and a whiff of fermented fish that might make you question this dream entirely. Welcome to Angkor, the lost capital of the Khmer Empire. This was once the beating heart of one of the most sophisticated civilizations of its time, at its peak housing more than 1 million people in the 12th century, no less. Imagine that. While most of Europe was still arguing about leeches and divine right, these folks were out here managing floodplains, inventing hydraulic engineering, and hawking gold-threaded scarves to tourists from halfway across Asia. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and what time it is for you. I always love seeing where in the world you're drifting off from now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You slip between twisted tree roots and stone lions guarding a stairwell carved straight out of myth. This is not just a temple. Not anymore. These steps once led to one of Angkor's most bustling market hubs. Picture stone walkways swarming with vendors. Children chase each other between stalls, their laughter ringing under temple eaves. A cow, blissfully unaware of sacred architecture, decides the best spot to chew cud is directly under a carved Apsara dancer. Historians still argue whether the market sprang up because of the temples or whether the temples just happened to grow alongside the markets. Either way, religion and retail were inseparable here. You could buy grilled banana on a stick and hear a monk chanting in the same 5-minute window, and this wasn't some sleepy backwater market. We're talking daily commerce that rivaled ancient Rome. Farmers, fishers, artisans, monks, traders each had a role, and every morning they returned to the same dance. Unwrap goods, haggle, praise the Buddha, sell your cousin's rice wine. Are EPEAT a mainstream historical fact worth chewing on? Archaeological surveys show sophisticated grid-like layouts in the central Angkor area, with road and canal systems specifically designed to channel foot traffic toward commercial zones. That's right, the ancient equivalent of mall walkways. You think your local shopping center planned well? These guys were optimizing footfall in the year 1100. But let's not romanticize too fast. You're sweating through your tunic. The sun is already high, and the temple stones radiate back yesterday's heat like a stubborn furnace. A local woman, let's call her Shrey, gives you a once-over and decides you look hungry. She waves you toward a small stall where skewers of grilled riverfish glisten on woven banana leaves. You nod because this is a dream, and also you forgot dinner. Shrey's stall isn't fancy. No QR codes, no plastic, just charred wood, a few baskets, and a scale carved out of horn. She doesn't ask for coin. Instead, she eyes your cloth satchel, which may or may not contain a bundle of betel leaves. A trade is struck. This moment is how it was done. Because even at its most complex, the Khmer market system relied on intimacy, relationships, memory. You're not just a customer. You're a participant in a deeply human web of mutual need and seasonal logic. Of course, fringe scholars have long debated whether these early temple markets were capitalist in any meaningful sense. After all, there were no stockbrokers or corporate logos. But some argue that the competitive pricing, innovation in packaging, banana leaf wraps, clay-sealed pots, and clever marketing, blessed by the temple monk, all point to a kind of pre-modern consumer culture. You sit now on a low stone step, watching it all unfold. Monks with saffron robes tucked neatly at the waist, local girls weaving flower garlands, oxen pulling carts heavy with jackfruit, and jugs of palm sap. Every voice, every footstep, every cough and bell ring becomes part of a sonic fabric that both soothes and overwhelms. Just before sleep pulls you deeper, you notice something odd, something the textbooks don't usually dwell on. A small child runs past, holding a carved wooden frog, clearly prized, and behind her, a vendor cries out in mock frustration. Was it a theft? A joke? A game? You'll never know. But for one surreal second, you realize the past isn't a dead place. It's a noisy, unpredictable, living market of memory. The light is beginning to shift now, filtering through palm fronds in long, liquid shafts. Somewhere behind you, a gibbon lets out a yawn of a call that could be mistaken for a distant yodel. If you were still anywhere near Switzerland, which, of course you aren't, you're sitting cross-legged at the edge of the Angkor Thom Market Square, knees brushing warm sandstone, blinking lazily at the commotion of mid-morning trade. Your fish skewer is finished. The charcoal tang still lingers on your tongue, mixing with lemongrass and maybe something a little too fermented. It's fine. You're dreaming. Behind you looms the Bayon Temple, all enigmatic smiling faces, 37 of them still intact, gazing outward in every compass direction. And directly in front of you, something less imposing, but just as important, a tightly packed row of shaded stalls selling salt, silk, pickled radish, and boiled bamboo shoots. This is where it happens, not the coronations, not the prayers. The deals. You take a slow breath, and the smells almost knock you over. Fresh turmeric, animal dung, sweet rice cakes stuffed with banana. It's a glorious chaos. And as your dream legs carry you deeper into the maze of woven mats and stacked clay jars, you find yourself in the textile quarter. The Khmer Empire didn't just build temples. It wove them into being. Silk was everywhere draped over statues, tied around sacred fig trees, worn by courtiers and commoners alike. Here, in this busy corner of the market, women sit at backstrap looms, their feet braced, their hands a blur. The patterns are geometric, hypnotic. You squint, and for a second, one of the designs almost pulses. Is it the heat? Is it magic? Mainstream historians agree. Khmer silk weaving reached high levels of refinement by the 12th century, producing luxurious fabrics prized far beyond its borders. Chinese records describe Khmer textiles as delicate as mist. Even in this sleepy haze, you appreciate that's probably a compliment. But not everything is strictly beautiful. You round a corner and find yourself face to face with a pot-bellied merchant, sporting an elaborate topknot and a robe so yellow it nearly blinds you. He grins. You blink. He's selling dried leeches, good for blood, he says, in a voice that echoes strangely, maybe even backwards. You don't speak Old Khmer, but the meaning lands. A woven basket next to him contains dozens of the squirming dried things, stiff as twigs, neatly arranged like a snack you never want to try. You move on quickly. Now you're in the aromatics row. And this place? This is sleep's greatest trap. Oil burners are lit with camphor, cinnamon, dried orange peel, and something thick and herbal that makes your eyelids flutter involuntarily. You're not entirely sure whether you're walking or floating. And frankly, you no longer care. Here's your quirky tidbit. Certain Khmer incense blends were created exclusively for use during monsoon season, intended not just for religious rites, but to cover up the scent of swamp gas and fish rot. One recipe recorded in temple wall graffiti no less included crushed lotus seeds, crocodile bile, and grated sandalwood. You try not to breathe too deeply. Crocodile bile doesn't smell that sacred dot further in. The ground starts to change. Longer, neatly swept dirt, but a raised walkway of large, flat stones. You recognize it from somewhere. Oh right, satellite imaging. Because here's a strange modern. Eco-historians only rediscovered the full extent of Angkor's market network, thanks to LiDAR technology in the 2010s, which revealed patterns of hidden walkways, raised roads, and long-lost residential grids beneath the jungle canopy. Angkor wasn't just a city. It was a planned organism and urban latticework pulsing with trade, religion, sewage systems, and government oversight. And scholars still argue whether these hidden market roads were exclusively for elite traders, or whether the common folk had full access. Some say they were taxed. Others argue they operated in barter. You silently bet on the barter team dot. As the crowd thins slightly, you begin to notice something else. The music. Not loud, not formal, but woven through the air like a background. Track small wooden xylophones, rene, bamboo flutes, the rhythmic tok-tok of coconut shell clappers. It's not a performance. It's just there. Life has a soundtrack here, and it's wood-toned and slightly offbeat. Just like your dreams. You pause at a stall selling tiny glazed pots, clearly used for oils or medicine. A little girl is trying to convince her older brother to trade her. A pot painted with elephants for one shaped like a mango. The brother is not convinced. This feels universal. You smile. He sees you, makes a face like tourists, and walks off. Your feet are aching now. Not in a painful way, more like a signal that your dream self has covered enough market ground for now. You find a shaded bench, or maybe it's an altar. Either way, no one stops you dot above. Clouds shift. A breeze rustles the palm trees. And in that half moment of silence, you can almost hear voices from 1,000 years ago still whispering across the flagstones. A question, maybe. A price. A joke. A farewell. It's all still here, folded into the stone like pressed flowers. You're beginning to fade. But just before your eyes slip fully shut, you hear one last detail. A passing monk, speaking to a vendor, points at your spot and laughs softly. You understand none of it, but you're pretty sure he just told her you've been here before. You're back on your feet, though it's unclear how much time has passed. The sun has shifted again, either late morning or early afternoon now, and the crowds have thickened. Children dart between legs carrying bundles of herbs, and somewhere, nearby, a gong tolls in an odd rhythm. 2 beats, then silence, then 3 more. You tilt your head, trying to decipher whether it's religious, practical, or just a bored kid who got their hands on the temple percussion. You're walking with purpose now, along one of those raised stone walkways, the kind rediscovered by LiDAR, the ancient city's invisible veins. This one leads to the meat and fish quarter. And let's just say, it's not for the faint of nose. You pass stalls with enormous banana leaves, laid flat as tables, covered in dried fish so still, with googly eyes intact, others stripped to glossy slivers, salted and sun-cured. Behind one stall, a woman with a missing incisor expertly dissects a catfish the size of your forearm, her knife making a rhythmic shick like a lullaby, played with steel dot mainstream fact incoming. The Tunnel Sap Lake, just west of Angkor, was the economic heart of the Khmer Empire. Its seasonal flood cycles created one of the richest freshwater fisheries in the world. Khmer fishermen developed specialized traps, nets, and even fish pens methods so efficient they're still in use across Cambodia today. You pause to watch a merchant pickle something that might be snails, though you're not entirely sure. He layers them with red chili, garlic, and palm sugar in a large ceramic urn and seals the top with what looks like beeswax. It's probably delicious, probably. But you're still haunted by the leeches from earlier, Dot, and now for a more curious offering. Across the way, a quiet stall houses rows of tiny cages, birds, mostly mynas, a few doves. The vendor sits cross-legged behind them, eyes closed. He's not asleep. He's listening. Every so often, he nods slowly, like the birds are telling him something important. You linger, Dot, in Khmer Buddhist tradition. Releasing a caged bird is an act of merit, a gift to the universe. But some scholars argue this system became so monetized that vendors would recapture the same birds again and again, turning compassion into a closed loop of profit. You watch a young woman approach, pay a coin, and set a bird free. It flutters upward, circles once, then settles into the tree above the stall. You both pretend not to notice Dot now, a sharp detour. You're pulled by dream or by curiosity into a narrow corridor of stalls that feels like an alley in a medieval bazaar. It's quieter here. The goods are stranger. And the people? Let's just say their sandals are a little better made. This is the foreign trader's lane. Because yes, even back in the 12th century, the Khmer Empire was on the global radar. Arab merchants, Chinese envoys, and even Indian traders all passed through Angkor, bringing dyes, perfumes, and knowledge. You pass one man wearing a white cotton tunic and a beard far too luxurious for this humidity. He sells lapis beads, probably from Afghanistan. He offers you one. You decline. He shrugs, as if to say, your loss. A scholarly debate still simmers over the extent of Angkor's international commerce. Some archaeologists point to glassware and foreign pottery as proof of vast networks. Others argue these items were prestige goods, owned only by the elite and not representative of daily trade. You look at the beads again. They don't feel elite. They feel everywhere. The foreign lane bleeds into a section devoted to dyes and pigments. You are now walking through color. Mounds of turmeric as golden as sunrise. Deep blue indigo bricks, stacked like soft stones. Red powder so vibrant it seems alive. A woman is stirring a thick black sludge in a clay pot. You lean over. She smiles and dips her fingers into it, then presses her thumb to your wrist. A flower print appears inky and precise. A brief aside, because yes, this is your dream and you're allowed detours. Ancient Khmer tattoo ink was made using plant soot, snake bile, and powdered metals. Monks would chant mantras during application, believed to make the symbols permanent in body and spirit. You look at your new ink. It fades. You don't mind. Back in the wider market, there's a brief scuffle near the pottery stalls. A monkey knot. The religious kind, the actual kind, has stolen a rice cake and is halfway up a banyan tree before anyone can respond. The crowd cheers. One old man throws a second cake up after it, laughing. There's always that one monkey. You keep moving. You pass a group of young boys playing a game that involves flicking dried tamarind seeds into a circle drawn in the dirt. The rules are unclear, but it's loud and competitive. One boy fakes a tragic fall, clutching his leg like a Roman senator. Everyone boos. You award him an invisible Oscar dot, and now you're hungry again. You follow your nose to a cart with bamboo steamers. Inside, dumplings stuffed with chive and taro, rice balls with shredded coconut, and something that smells like peanut and roasted garlic. You buy one of each, because dream calories don't count. Sitting nearby, you watch an old woman paint symbols on a strip of fabric. She dips a stick in pigment, carefully inscribing glyphs you can't read. Another customer leans in and murmurs something. She nods. The customer walks away with the cloth tucked into her sash. Turns out, Markets weren't just for food and tools. They were information centers, spiritual consultation zones, even matchmaking services. A place where fortunes were told, charms were sold, and gossip flowed like palm wine. You've been walking in circles, but you don't care. The air is heavier now. Afternoon heat is settling over everything like a blanket. Somewhere behind you, another gong tolls. It might be a signal to rest. It might just be a reminder. The city breathes, and you with it. The sun, now at its peak, casts blades of white light between the angled fronds of towering sugar palms. You squint, lifting a hand to shield your eyes, the humidity working its way into every thread of your clothing. You're walking slower. Now not out of exhaustion, but because the air itself has thickened, heavy with the scent of incense and fermented rice. You've arrived at the spiritual heart of the market, the shrine quarter. And no, not every market has a shrine quarter. But you're not in every market. This is Angkor, capital of an empire, and religion is not a side dish here. It's the whole buffet. A small crowd forms around a makeshift altar, shaded beneath a sloping palm leaf canopy. Someone has arranged lotus blossoms in a perfect spiral, their petals damp with dew or perhaps ritual oil. A robed monk barefoot, sun-darkened, his ochre cloth spotted with ash chants softly over a bowl of smoking herbs. You don't understand the words, but you feel their weight, like the low hum of a plane before takeoff. Deep, resonant, hypnotic. The Khmer Empire was officially Hindu in its early centuries, then gradually turned toward Mahayana Buddhism, and finally embraced Theravada Buddhism around the 13th century. But like any good empire, it blended beliefs with local flavor, so you get Brahma statues beside serpent spirits, Buddhist stupas near Hindu linga shrines, and one particularly striking carving of a crocodile-faced goddess cradling a newborn. Historians still debate if she was divine or metaphorical, or both. You linger by a shrine dedicated to the neat ancestral guardian spirits. Someone's left a bundle of bananas, a silk ribbon, and a bottle of what is unmistakably rice whiskey. The air around the shrine crackles. You wouldn't touch those offerings if your dream life depended on it. Moving deeper, the market narrows again. Here, spiritual tools are sold beside everyday goods. You pass a stall lined with clay amulets pressed with Sanskrit script, their edges worn soft by fingers or time. The vendor is a wiry man with forearms covered in faded ink. He offers you a charm to calm the tiger inside. You wonder briefly whether he means anxiety or indigestion. Nearby, another seller is burning a dark resin. You lean in. It smells like myrrh, but smokier, earthier. He grins with golden teeth and mutters, "For the ghosts." You smile because, of course, there are ghosts here. Fun fact to tuck into your dream satchel. Some Khmer traders believed that spirits could latch onto objects, especially valuable ones, and travel with them. This made international trade an exercise not just in economics, but in spiritual risk management. That silk scarf from India? Possibly haunted. Buyer beware dot at the end of the shrine row. You spot something peculiar. A painted sign in Sanskrit. Half faded but clear enough. Silence cleanses faster than smoke. No one around you is talking. Even the children seem to sense the shift. You breathe in, then out. The quiet presses around your ears, like water dot the next part of the market. Opens suddenly like turning a corner and finding a field of stars. You're in the textile lane now, and it's dazzling. Cloth in colors so rich you'd swear they were. Backlit, deep emeralds, sunburst orange, soft dove gray with silver threads like spider silk. Women squat at floor looms, their hands dancing across warp and weft with dizzying speed. You watch one work a pattern so intricate it could hypnotize. A snake, the rhythm of it click-clack, pull-slide. Breath pause feels like a lullaby made for your brain. The Khmer were master weavers. Even in ancient times, their silk techniques rivaled those of China and India. Dyed with crushed beetles, iron mud, indigo, and soot, their fabrics told stories of rank, family, region, even mood. Scholars still argue whether specific motifs were coded messages or just really good design. You'd wear one either way. A young girl offers you a scarf. You let her drape it around your shoulders. It smells of tamarind and ashes. She giggles. You catch a reflection in a polished copper plate at the next stall. You look ... vaguely royal. In a wind-blown, heat-slick, culturally confused kind of way. From textiles, you drift toward a stall selling perfumes and oils. Clay pots labeled in counter script sit nestled in straw baskets. The vendor is blind or pretends to be, and identifies each pot by scent alone. He places a dab of something behind your ear. It smells like crushed lemongrass, wood smoke, and rain-soaked stone. He nods once and says, "That one remembers you." You blink. Okay, cool. Scent in ancient Angkor wasn't just for allure. It was medicinal, spiritual, even architectural. Temples were sometimes anointed with oils before festivals. The air, thick with meaning. One fringe theory even suggests priests use scent as a timekeeping tool, changing the blend to mark different hours or rituals. Weird? Yes, but your nose is oddly convinced. Back in motion, you pass a corner where two older women are bent over an elaborate game board scratched into the stone. Pebbles and shells serve as pieces. It might be Makruk, a Southeast Asian cousin of chess, or something older still. You pause. One of the women growls softly at her opponent, who cackles and slaps the board with a cloth fan. You laugh, out loud, and they both glance up, startled. Then they smile. The spell isn't broken, it just made room for you. A rooster crows somewhere, behind a stall. Unfazed, a pig snorts. You notice someone selling small flutes carved from bamboo. You try one. It squeaks. A child nearby claps. You take a tiny bow. You're part of the market now, as you weave between stalls again. A sudden breeze stirs the dust. The air smells of sweat, stone, and something sweet like mangoes left in the sun. You hear chanting again. Not from a shrine this time, but a group of workers taking rest. One beats a drum in slow rhythm. Another claps once every few bars. It's not a song, it's a spell. You close your eyes. Let it carry you. You open your eyes, and the tempo of the market has shifted again. The late afternoon light slants long and golden, painting everything in rich amber. Shadows stretch like soft ribbons across the packed earth, and the clamor has deepened into a kind of mellow murmur. You've wandered into the entertainment quarter, yes. Even the ancient world knew that buying grain and incense wasn't enough to keep people coming back. You need drama, spectacle, and a little weirdness. And this market delivers. The first thing that catches your eye is a puppet show. Simple shadow puppets intricately cut from buffalo hide cast sharp silhouettes on a stretched cloth screen. Behind it, two men manipulate the figures with thin bamboo rods, while a third chants the story in a sing-song cadence, his voice flipping between characters like a seasoned improv actor. You can't understand the plot, but a monkey god just stole a watermelon and fled atop a flaming tiger, so it's definitely not boring. Shadow puppetry, called spectrum in Khmer, wasn't just for kids. These performances often reenacted sacred epics like the Ramayana and were thought to carry blessings. The puppets, painstakingly carved with tiny holes and details, are treated like relics. There's even an old belief that if a puppet breaks mid-performance, it's a bad omen for the village. Historians still argue whether these shows were purely religious or slipped into political satire when no monks were listening. Behind you, someone starts playing a a kind of bamboo xylophone. The notes are hollow and bright, like drops of water on hot stone. A woman dances slowly to the rhythm, her movements impossibly fluid, fingers bending backward into elegant spirals. She wears a shimmering sampot and a golden crown that catches the last of the sun. You blink, half convinced she's floating. And here's a quirky tidbit for your sleepy archive. Khmer court dancers trained from childhood could rotate their ankles a full 180 degrees during certain moves. That's not just flexibility. That's what was that pop territory. The dance was both entertainment and worship, mimicking the movements of celestial beings called apsaras. Imagine ballet, but with added metaphysics and heat-stroke dot, someone offers you a drink from a tall clay vessel. It's sugar palm wine mildly fermented, tangy, and slightly fizzy. You sip carefully. It tastes like liquid sunset. In ancient markets like these, alcohol wasn't hidden away or frowned upon. It was part of social life. Palm wine, rice wine, even herb-infused liquor were traded and consumed with ease. One Chinese envoy once wrote that Khmer men drink until the words fall over, which honestly sounds like a decent weekend. You round a corner and find a crowd gathered near. A raised platform. A toothless man in saffron robes balances on one leg atop a bamboo pole while juggling 3 coconuts and reciting what sounds like a poem. The crowd cheers, kids chant along. It's somewhere between poetry slam and talent show, and it works. Now, here's something fringe historians love. Some scholars believe certain Khmer entertainers were also spies. Yep, storytellers and jesters could move between regions freely, collecting information under the guise of performance. Who'd suspect a dancing man with a monkey puppet of being a royal informant? You take a moment to eye that juggler with new suspicion. The entertainment bleeds into side alleys, tiny spaces between permanent stalls, where kids perform impromptu skits. 2 boys slap each other with palm fronds, reenacting some grand warrior duel. A girl, no older than 10, narrates dramatically in a voice deeper than yours. You applaud, and she gives you a nod like a seasoned diva. Future Empress energy. Next. To them, a stall of carved instruments, flutes, fiddles, and something that looks like a coconut crossed with a banjo. The merchant, a man with a long white beard and a surprisingly modern wink, lets you try one. You pluck a note. It sounds like a frog burping politely. He claps. Very good. He lies. And that's the thing. No one here's pretending this is all polished perfection. It's dusty, loud, uneven, but alive. Deeply, vividly alive. As the sky turns molten orange, someone lights a ring of oil lamps around a gathering circle. More people appear, some barefoot, some in bright ceremonial cloth. Drums begin. Low, slow, steady. A man in a bronze mask steps forward and starts a story. You don't know the words, but his movements paint a picture. A lost prince, a jealous moon, a battle underwater. You watch, enraptured. The Khmer oral tradition ran deep. Storytellers were historians, comedians, moral guides, and keepers of regional memory. One story could stretch for hours, days, even. They'd be passed from village to village, tweaked with every retelling. A king could become a fisherman. A god might end up as a goose. Accuracy wasn't the point. Memory was. Sometimes those storytellers were women. One obscure temple carving shows a female bard holding a scroll and gesturing to a crowd of children. Some think it's symbolic. Others argue she was real, a sort of wandering grandmother turned griot. Historians still debate her identity. But personally, you'd buy her memoir in a heartbeat. The wind picks up. A gust of cooled air carries the scent of citronella, smoldering wood, and roasted yams. Someone's lit a fire pit for a final performance. You gather with the rest, sitting cross-legged in the dust. The stars are starting to show, sharp and bright against the ink-washed sky. A flute begins to play, slow, lilting, like a lullaby heard through a wall of sleep. The fire cracks. A dancer begins to move this time with more trance than performance. Her eyes are half-lidded, limbs loose but precise. It's not for applause. It's not even for the audience. It's devotion. You watch in silence. You lie back, propping, your head on your arms. The firelight flickers across your face, and you feel something ancient stir in your chest. Not memory, exactly. More like recognition. Like you've been here before. Like you never left. Someone offers you a sticky rice. Cake wrapped in banana leaf. You take it, you chew. You exhale. The fire dwindles behind you, and with it, the day's noise recedes into a lull. The markets never truly sleep, but they shift like a city turning over in bed. You wander away from the performers and toward a quieter zone nestled between rows of carved stone archways. This is the craftsman's quarter, where things are made rather than merely sold, where time slows into patient gestures and soft hammer taps. You hear it before you see it, the rhythmic tink, tink, tink of a chisel meeting sandstone. A sculptor crouches low, completely absorbed, carving delicate floral patterns into a temple lintel. His hands are dark with dust, knuckles like roots, but the pattern emerging beneath his fingers is ethereal perfect lotus petals, each one no larger than your thumbprint. He glances up, meets your gaze for a moment, and returns to his work. You feel oddly privileged to have witnessed it. Khmer stone carving wasn't just a skill, it was sacred. Many believed the act of carving divine symbols into sandstone was a kind of spiritual purification. Artisans didn't merely decorate temples, they unlocked them, coaxing the gods out of stone. One of the oldest known inscriptions even credits a carver by name Kudara as a sculptor of Shiva's joy. Poetic? Definitely. Humble? Not a chance. You step into a shaded canopy where women weave dyed threads through looms made of bamboo and bone. The textiles shimmer faintly in the low torchlight deep indigos, saffron yellows, and a green so rich it almost glows. A girl no older than 15 is threading gold strands through her work, tongue sticking out in concentration. She doesn't look up, but her mother does. She smiles and gestures toward the cloth. You run your fingers across the silk. It's soft, impossibly so. Not slick like factory cloth, but textured like water just before it boils. Historians still argue whether silk production in Khmer times was homegrown or largely imported from China and India. But what's clear is the obsession with color. Natural dyes from tree bark, iron-rich clay, indigo plants, even insect shells were meticulously blended. One fringe theory suggests a lost technique involving fermented crocodile dung produced. A brilliant blue-black hue. You decide not to touch the darker fabrics. Further down, a potter shapes a wide-brimmed bowl with lazy ease, his wheel spinning with a rhythm that matches your heartbeat. His clay is speckled, likely from the red earth near Tunnel Sap. Each bowl he makes bears a mark on the bottom, a swirl, a dot, sometimes what looks like a fingerprint. A signature, maybe, or a prayer. You pick one up. It's heavier than you. Expected but beautifully balanced. There's a certain honesty in handmade things. No identical twins, no secret machinery. Just fire, hand, and breath dot to your left. A jeweler sits cross-legged beneath a paper lantern. He works on a tiny golden ring, peering through a polished shard of glass. It's a piece meant for a dancer. He tells you, a replica of an Apsara's anklet. You lean in. The details are ridiculous. Minuscule bells, braided filigree, a lotus. Crest smaller than a fingernail. He pauses to warm the gold over coals, and you watch it glow like a captive sun. Here's a fun tidbit. Ancient Khmer, Jewelers sometimes embedded tiny slivers of shell into goldwork to make it sing when moved. The effect was subtle, just a faint chime, but it turned every gesture into a performance. Imagine every step you take making music without your knowing. Your Fitbit could never dot as you pass a lacquerer brushing sticky black resin onto a carved wooden panel. You start to notice the smell of smoke and wet earth. The river is close. You follow it, weaving through alleyways lined with basket makers and mat weavers. The mats here are woven from sedge and rushes, stiff and fragrant, designed to keep cool even in the humid heart of summer. You see some rolled up and stacked beside sleeping vendors, already halfway to dreams of tomorrow's trades. One man offers you a writing kit, charcoal sticks, folded palm leaf manuscripts, and a stylus carved from bone. Writing in this place is both sacred and commercial. Sanskrit was the language of temples, but Khmer script elegant, looping, and deeply phonetic ruled daily life. Receipts, poems, spells, love letters, all written on palm leaves with a delicate scratch of stylus on fiber. Palm leaf books had to be treated with oil and turmeric to last, and every few years they'd be recopied by hand. One single line of verse could pass through dozens of scribes, changing just a little with each retelling. Historians still debate whether certain temple inscriptions were deliberately poetic or just mistranslations handed down like a historical game of telephone. You step into a larger, tented pavilion at the edge of the craft lane. Here, master artisans display their most impressive work. Bronze bells large enough to ride in, intricate lutes carved to resemble dragons, a throne made entirely of bamboo joints, lacquered to gleam like obsidian, each piece more outrageous than the last dot, and then, oh, of course, an elephant saddle. Not a simple cloth, but a full-blown velvet and leather monstrosity encrusted with shells, garnets, and what looks suspiciously like teeth. A merchant notices your look and winks. Royal. Hunting parties, he says. Always want to look stylish when stalking deer. You wonder briefly what it costs. Then you remember you're a time traveler wearing linen pants and carrying 2 bananas. Probably not in your budget dot. As you exit the pavilion, the night fully settles around you. The craftsman's quarter has grown quiet. Torches flicker low. Artisans doze near their workbenches, curled like cats beside the tools of their trade. You walk softly, not wanting to wake the sleeping rhythm of the place. You look back once more at the young weaver, still at her loom. She hasn't stopped. Her gold thread gleams like starlight with every past dot in this place. Creation is constant. It hums under everything. 1,000 hands, 1,000 stories woven into cloth, etched into stone, spun into gold dot. You keep walking. You emerge from the artisan quarter with your senses slightly overwhelmed, fingers still tingling from the silk, the faint echo of bronze chimes following you like perfume. But now, the market hum has changed. The night deepens, and so does the tone. Laughter sharpens at the edges. Shadows stretch longer between the stalls. You head toward the nightward edge of the city, where things get a little looser. This is where the spice smoke hangs thick in the air. You pass food vendors still stirring their pots, flames flaring, as ingredients hiss and crackle in shallow bronze pans. A girl fans skewers of river eel brushed in tamarind paste. The sweet sour scent hits you like a memory you haven't had yet. Another vendor dips banana blossoms into a batter made from rice flour and something bright and floral, jasmine maybe, before frying them to lacy perfection. You take a bite and the crunch nearly echoes. It's so good you momentarily forget what century you're in. Food historians agree. The Khmer Empire had one of the most flavor-diverse cuisines in the ancient world. Anchovies fermented into prahak paste, sour soups laced with tamarind and basil, and rice noodles made fresh every morning. Rice wasn't just a staple, It was the metric of prosperity. One royal decree even defined a person's wealth in mats of rice owed to the state. Nearby, a man ladles steaming broth from a clay pot into ceramic bowls. You see curls of lemongrass and tiny red peppers bobbing near the surface. He gestures with his chin and mutters, "Fish, not too spicy. Stomach will thank me." You accept. He's right, Dot, as you slurp the soup. A curious fact drifts through your mind. Archaeologists found ancient stoneware labeled with names like "for sour stew" and "spicy fish only." It's nice to know food labeling was a thing even 1,000 years ago. Less barcodes, more charcoal scribbles dot beyond the food vendors. Things get louder. Music threads its way toward you, soft gongs, wooden drums, a warbling string instrument plucked lazily. And then, voices dot you enter what can only be described as the entertainment ring of the marketplace. It's a strange fusion of open-air tavern, street stage, and salon. There's no roof, just a sky pricked with stars and canopies of red fabric, stitched with golden thread. Beneath, performers hold court dot to your right. A storyteller performs to a semicircle of adults and children alike, his arms wide, his face a rolling ocean of expression. He's halfway through the tale of a forest spirit who fell in love with a crocodile hunter. The children gasp when the hunter accidentally marries the crocodile in human form. You catch yourself leaning forward, too. Here's a delightful detail. Khmer oral tales were often performed in a lakan, style part spoken, part danced, with symbolic gestures that represented entire narrative beats. That flick of the wrist? A wedding. That stomp? A betrayal. Your Netflix queue could never dot to your left. A circle of dancers practices beneath a makeshift scaffold of bamboo and twine. You pause, hypnotized by their hands, each movement impossibly slow and articulate, the Apsara style. Each dancer flows, like honey dripping upward. Their fingers stretch back at impossible angles, eyes wide and serene, necks swaying in rhythm. Historians still argue whether the Apsara dancers were mostly ceremonial, or if they performed regularly for the public. One theory posits that some dancers were trained from childhood specifically to interpret religious stories, while another suggests traveling troupes brought secular tales to commoners. The truth might be both, or something fuzzier in between. 1. Dancer meets your eye, just for a second. And though you know it's a coincidence, you feel at that eerie moment when past and present loop together like a bracelet. Behind you, a musician begins tuning what looks like a hammered dulcimer. He taps it gently, and the notes scatter like raindrops on glass. A boy next to him starts playing a bamboo flute off key at first, then smoothly, hauntingly. It's less a song, more a mood dot. You sit. Just for a moment, the crowd around you has shifted. There's a woman in a patterned shawl reading palms near a bowl of smoldering herbs. A gambler shuffles round stone tiles etched with unfamiliar symbols, maybe a dice game, maybe a calendar. 2 older men argue over the rules while sipping from dark clay cups. Rice wine, you guess. One offers you a taste. You decline. You remember the soup and feel a hiccup coming. The entertainment here isn't just for laughs. It's memory-keeping, social code-breaking, even low-stakes rebellion. Hidden inside stories are criticisms of the elite, jokes at a priest's expense, or thinly veiled protests about rice taxes. But everyone pretends it's just a story. That's the game. A fringe theory claims some performers used coded choreography to communicate with spies during political unrest. One extra turn of the wrist, like a planned ambush. Another, probably just a flourish. Historians remain politely baffled dot as the evening stretches. So does the vibe. Musicians lounge between songs. A poet drunkenly recites verses to a coconut. Someone tries juggling betel nuts and fails spectacularly. Eventually, the crowd begins to thin. The children are long gone. The rice wine is almost finished. You stand, legs tingling from stillness. There's one last act. A masked dancer, face painted gold and white, steps into the ring. No one speaks. He begins to move slow, deliberate, otherworldly. His hands fold like origami. His body coils and twists, telling a story with no words. A god, or maybe a demon. You're not sure. It doesn't matter. You watch until he bows and vanishes into the curtain. And then, almost reluctantly, you rise and slip away from the firelight. You've had enough stories for one night. Or at least, you think you have. As you walk toward the outskirts again, the music behind you fades. Ahead, darkness, open air, and something quieter. You've seen the gold and silk and stone. Now, it's time to see what lies beyond the city's laughter. You leave the warmth of the firelight behind. The city's buzz recedes with every step, swallowed by the thrum of insects and the occasional distant hoot of a night bird. Ahead, the market stalls thin out and fade, replaced by winding dirt paths that weave through stretches of palms, tamarind, and moonflower vines. You follow the scent of damp earth and crushed leaves. This is the quiet fringe of Angkor, where light ends and mystery begins. By the time you reach the outer edge, your feet crunch softly over a causeway bordered with broken balustrades. Stone Naga serpents with wide-eyed expressions once lined this walkway, but many are missing their heads now. You pass the remnants of carved mouths, frozen mid-snarl. Their once fearsome presence now made oddly peaceful in moonlight. Just beyond, you find them, the hidden stalls. Low and unlit, built into the backs of crumbling stone walls. These are the twilight markets, open only to the brave, the curious, or the slightly unwise. You qualify as all three tonight. A quiet vendor nods to you from beneath a thatched lean-to. She sells nothing you can name. Twisted roots bound with silk, vials of black liquid labeled in script so ancient it predates most temples. She smiles slightly, doesn't speak. You don't ask. This is the realm of the apothecaries, the herb masters, the charm peddlers, not quite illegal, more like gently frowned upon by the temple elite. You move carefully. There's a vendor hunched over tiny wooden boxes, each filled with bits of fossil, powdered shell, dried sea creatures that look like they belong in a children's nightmare. A sign beside them reads, "For headaches, dreams, and stomach lions." You decide not to ask what a stomach lion is. A fringe theory you vaguely recall suggests that some traders specialized in dream ingredients, compounds, thought to enhance or even steer the direction of sleep. Historians still argue whether these potions were medicinal or more ceremonial, maybe even recreational. One 12th century physician's notes describe a brew for memory walking, which sounds either like enlightenment or light poisoning. You pause at another stall where strips of palm leaf manuscripts are sold like prayer flags, each containing mantras, charms, or fortune adjustments. The writing is etched in soot-black ink, the corners singed for a spiritual sealing. You run your fingers across the texture, rough, dry, delicate as onion skin. The vendor warns you not to read them aloud. Now there's a curious moment. You realize that in this fringe market, you're being watched just as much as you're observing. Not in a sinister way, but like the others, no, you're not from here. You carry no offerings, no baskets, no quiet greeting in the local tongue. You're a ghost walking through someone else's hidden ritual. They let you, sure, but you're a ripple in still water. A girl offers to draw your birth sign using a grid of charred seeds. She asks no questions, just traces your palm briefly, then begins sorting the seeds into a spiral. You recognize a tamarind, a rice grain, a sliver of what might be dried lotus root. In the end, she tells you your shadow is a little loud, but loyal. That's weirdly accurate. The ritual ends with her tucking a tiny leaf into your pocket. It'll rot by morning, she says, but it listens better than most people. Okay then, stranger still is the next merchant. A man sits cross-legged behind a curtain of bone chimes, each one carved from what appears to be animal femurs. Or at least, you hope they're animal. He invites you to hear your name in the wind. Against your better judgment, you sit. He closes his eyes, mutters something under his breath, then jostles the bone curtain gently. The chimes rattle, not musically, not rhythmically, but with purpose. You hear a clack, a deep tick, a whispered wobble. That's you. He says, you believe him. Some anthropologists believe these name readings were part of a larger folk taxonomy ways of categorizing personalities based on how their energy moved through natural materials. Bone, water, smoke, silk. It sounds ridiculous until you feel it happen. And all the while, above you, the canopy thickens. No torches here. Just slivers of moonlight spearing down through leaves. Occasionally, you glimpse a shrine tiny, handmade, placed among the trees. Some are just hollowed logs filled with flowers. Others are stone platforms with smooth white pebbles stacked in spirals. These aren't part of official religious sites. There's something older, pre-temple, pre-priest. Historians still debate whether these forest offerings were animist leftovers or parallel practices the state never fully integrated. There's little documentation, just fragments. One explorer from the 1800s noted spirit nests woven into trees like bird homes, each one lined with lotus petals and beetle shells. You spot one now, glowing faintly with the reflection of a nearby pool dot. You make your way to that pool, small, circular, no more than 10 feet across. It looks natural, but you're not sure. The water is perfectly still. Around it are 3 stone posts, broken and half-buried. You lean closer. There's movement, not in the water, but in the air above it. Mist? No. Something like heat shimmer, but without heat. You're not scared, just unsure what rules apply here. You sit beside it. Watch. Nothing jumps out. No ghosts. No fireflies. Just quiet. Eventually, your eyes adjust to the dark, and you spot a thin trail leading away from the pond. Not a road, just the suggestion of one. It seems to move between trees, the way thread moves through fabric, so naturally. You follow. Because of course you do. Because the market is behind you, and the night still has one more secret. You follow the trail, barely visible in the moonlight, more suggestion than path. Your footsteps soften on the damp earth, cushioned by centuries of fallen leaves. The hum of the twilight market fades completely now, replaced by the hypnotic chorus of frogs and cicadas. It's quieter out here, not because there's no sound, but because every sound belongs. The air is thick with the scent of night orchids and wet bark. Somewhere close, a gecko clicks. A slow wind stirs the canopy. You don't know where you're going, and somehow that makes you walk more slowly, more carefully, as if each step might wake up something old. The trail narrows, winds around a crumbling stone wall, and suddenly you find yourself standing at the edge of a vast, blackened hollow. It's not a ruin exactly, more like a memory that sank halfway into the ground. Wide stone steps descend into what was once a reservoir. A barre, maybe, or a ritual pool. You can't tell. Half the structure is swallowed by vines, the rest shrouded in mist. But along the upper edges, you can still see decorative carvings, apsaras with wind-blown sashes, elephants with curling trunks, garudas locked in eternal flight. You descend the stairs, slowly, one at a time. Your feet leave wet prints on ancient stone at the bottom. The floor is flooded ankle deep in water that's somehow both ice-cold and warm around the edges. It smells faintly metallic, like old blood and blooming lotuses. A floating candle drifts past your foot, its tiny flame still flickering. Who lit it? You don't ask that this is no longer a market, not even a fringe one. This is where trade ends and something else begins. Some historians believe these submerged chambers were part of the cities, hydraulic system reservoirs and spillways, designed to channel monsoon waters and prevent flooding. But others argue they doubled as purification chambers. One explorer's journal from 1878 describes a ceremony called Sok Rithi, where pilgrims would wade into moonlit water while priests chanted, purging the body of stone thoughts. You don't hear chanting, but you do feel something. A low. Vibration begins to hum beneath your feet so faint, you think it might be your pulse, or the water, or both. You stop walking. Let the stillness wrap around you like silk. That's when you notice the walls. They're covered in faint, hand-painted symbols. Not etched like temple carvings, painted with what looks like charcoal and clay. Lines, spirals, what might be letters. Or just memories recorded in the only language the artist knew. Some are clearly older than others, fading into the slick. Moss. Others. Disturbingly recent dot. You trace one shape with your finger. It smears slightly. Wet dot, you wipe your hand on your tunic and pretend that didn't happen. Now and then, light shifts across the chamber reflected from somewhere high above, and you see broken statues slumped in the corners. Not regal, not posed, just dropped, like offerings too heavy to carry anymore. One of them has its head tilted upward, mouth open as if trying to drink the dark. You step around it carefully. You don't want to disrespect anything down here, Dot. It's hard to say what time it is. The air doesn't feel like night anymore. Or day. Just dot, 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 suspended dot. You spot a raised platform in the center of the chamber, barely rising above the waterline. On it rests a series of small bowls, each one filled with something different. One holds ash, one holds white seeds. Another has what looks like crushed beetle wings. You don't touch them, but you sit down. You're not sure why. Just feels right, Dot, and then something odd happens. The space starts to feel familiar, like you've been here before, Dot, not in this life, maybe, but once. In a story someone whispered to you in another dream. A story where people built cities from memory, traded in shadow and scent, and made maps by walking them. This place, the Lost City Markets, it isn't just about things being bought or sold. It's about exchanges of ideas, of dreams, of weight and silence, of fear traded for courage, of coins traded for identity, of a name traded for a night of disappearing. A fringe account from a Portuguese priest mentions market sanctuaries where travelers could leave behind fragments of themselves. A nail, a hair, a name, not to lose them, but to cleanse them. Historians still argue whether this was metaphor or literal ritual. You're starting to think there's no difference. A whisper brushes your ear, dot no wind, dot no voice. Just a thought. That arrives, leaves something. You reach into your pocket, almost without thinking, and pull out that tiny leaf the girl gave you earlier. The one that was supposed to rot by morning, dot it's still there, dot still whole. You place it on one of the bowls and watch as the water quivers. Not from movement, but from acknowledgement. That's enough, dot you stand. The water clings to your ankles like a final farewell. As you climb back up the steps, you don't look back. Some places aren't meant to be stared at. Just remember, dot back. On the forest trail, you walk more lightly now. Not because you're less tired, but because the night is carrying part of your weight for you. The path widens again, and you glimpse torchlight through the trees. Laughter. A soft drumbeat. Another. Market dot not hidden. Not forgotten dot. Just dot dot different. You keep walking, because your journey isn't over yet. The torchlight grows brighter as you approach, flickering through the dense brush in rhythmic patterns like the heartbeat of something ancient. yet still alive. You push aside a curtain of vines and emerge into a clearing that feels almost choreographed. It's round, ringed with carved totems, each facing inward. The market here is smaller than the others, more intimate. No stalls, no carts, just woven mats on the ground, with offerings laid out like carefully curated secrets. You step inside, and immediately the sounds shift. Drums, yes, but also soft. Flutes and a low human hum that seems to rise from the earth itself. You realize is not a place for buying. It's for remembering. You kneel beside one mat where an old woman sits cross-legged. Her eyes are closed, but she senses you instantly. Without speaking, she lifts a small clay tablet from her lap and hands it to you. It's warm, smooth on one side, scratched with indecipherable symbols on the other. You hold it for a moment, feeling its subtle weight before handing it back. She nods as if you've passed some unspoken test. Welcome to the memory market. Mainstream archaeology rarely mentions this sort of place, but fringe scholars and oral historians across Southeast Asia talk about gatherings known as Nimith-Ser, markets of signs. Unlike regular commerce, these weren't about trade or consumption. They were about exchange on a different level. Relics of experience, objects imbued with emotion, dream, or regret. Think of it as an emotional pawn shop, except nothing ever really left the owner. Just shifted for a while. You move mat to mat. At one, a girl balances two bowls of sand, each a different color. She invites you to stir them with your fingers. As you do, strange images form and fade. A flooded temple, a boy with silver bangles, a bird with teeth. Are they your memories? Someone else's? You're not sure, but they feel. Known. At another station, a young man is burning something. In a shallow dish? Paper? Leaves? Hair? You ask, but he only smiles and says, "Let go." You don't ask again. A few feet away, a trio of masked figures are slowly performing a ritual dance. Their movements are precise, yet oddly irregular, like a record with a scratch. Each time the foot hits the ground, a puff of cinnamon-scented powder rises into the air. You're not sure if this is performance or prayer. Maybe both. Historians still argue whether these market ritual hybrids were remnants of Brahmanic traditions, Buddhist trance festivals, or something much older pre-Angkorian rites tied to ancestral veneration. One French ethnography noted that such markets were often seasonal and nocturnal, accessible only to certain bloodlines or those with enough sorrow behind their eyes. You're not sure what your eyes say, but no one turns you away. A child offers you a cup of thick, golden liquid. You hesitate, but take a sip. It tastes like honey, but also like metal, and citrus, and the scent of burnt rain. Your mind wanders, instantly, to a memory of your grandmother's kitchen, the one you're pretty sure you never had. Someone nearby starts chant low, melodic, familiar in that way dreams. Sometimes or you follow the sound and find a woman sitting beside a shallow bowl of water. Floating on its surface are tiny fragments, broken pottery, fish bones, and shreds of palm leaves with symbols inked in red. She gestures for you to look closer. As you lean in, you realize the fragments reflect not just your face, but different versions of it, older, younger, laughing, weeping, silent. Each time you blink, they shift. She whispers something you don't understand, but you nod anyway. This entire market feels like a mirror turned inward. Somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat intensifies. You instinctively glance upward. Above the clearing, the canopy breaks slightly, and through the gap, the stars blaze like silver seeds flung across velvet. You notice constellations you've never seen before, or maybe just forgotten. You can't name them, but they pull at your heart like the smell of home after too long away. People begin to gather near the center of the circle now. They form a spiral, each person linking hands with the next, eyes closed. You're gently pulled into the chain. At first, you feel awkward, but then the rhythm settles in. Breath in, breath out, dot, step. Step. Pause, dot, the spiral begins to turn, dot, not fast, just steadily. And with each rotation, something loosens inside you. That old regret. That unanswered question. That version of yourself who didn't quite survive the last year, dot, gone. No, not just lighter. That's the trick of this place. The trade isn't about loss or gain. It's about redistribution of burden, of memory, of identity. You don't leave here with more things. You leave with a little more space inside yourself, dot. Eventually, the circle dissolves. The music fades. You sit beneath the totem and rest, dot. It's carved with a face not fierce, not smiling. Just watching, waiting. A light drizzle begins to fall, almost too gentle to notice. It cools your skin and drowns the last embers of the incense. You realize your clothes are damp. You're hungry. You're tired, but you're not ready to sleep. Not just yet, because somewhere deeper in the jungle, beyond even this market, there's one more place calling to you. One final corner. Of the lost city markets, you stand slowly, stretch, nod to the totem, dot, and walk again. You push deeper into the jungle now, where the vines grow thicker, and the path becomes less a trail and more a suggestion. Each step is muffled by moss and rotting leaves, the air humid and saturated with the scent of wet bark, overripe fruit, and something else, something sharp, almost electric. You're not entirely sure what drives you forward at this point. Curiosity? Momentum? The strange, unspoken promise that the last of the markets holds something? Different, dot. Eventually, the trees open up not into a clearing, but into a vast, roofless structure of stone and root. The jungle hasn't just reclaimed this place. It's merged with it. Giant fig trees have grown into the crumbled walls, forming twisted pillars. Creepers dangle like chandeliers, and the ground is covered not in dirt, but in a mosaic of polished stone tiles, many of them cracked, uneven, half swallowed by roots. Still, you can make out shapes, concentric circles, spirals, stars, the occasional elephant or naga carved in negative space. This is the market of time. There are no stalls here, no sellers. Only long stone platforms where people sit, some silent, some whispering, some just staring ahead, as though they're watching something invisible play out in front of them. Take a seat beside a woman who wears a woven crown of lotus stems and stares unblinking into the distance. Do you see it? She murmurs, not looking at you. You're about to ask what she means, but then you do, dot. In the reflection of the glossy stone beneath your feet, scenes begin to flicker. Not your life. Not even this century. Entire epochs bloom and fade like candlelight. Here, the mighty Angkor kings walk again. Jayavarman VII, his face both stern and tender, rides an elephant through the floodplain. There, stone workers chisel a temple frieze, while their children splash in the moat. You watch the construction of Angkor Wat. In reverse towers on stack, scaffolding vanishes, the jungle slides in like a green wave. Historians still argue whether these spaces, if they existed, served a religious function, an astronomical one, or some blend of both. Some fringe archaeologists propose they were ceremonial chronomarkets, places where knowledge, prophecy, and memory were traded like goods. A few even whisper that time here wasn't just observed, but bartered. One theory very popular. In late-night forums and among academic pariahs claims the Khmer Empire may have once had a calendar so advanced it accounted not just for celestial motion, but emotional cycles, generational traumas, even the recurrence of great ideas. According to them, these markets weren't trying to sell time, but sync with it, harmonize with its ripples like a tuning fork. You blink, and the floor now shows something else. A great drought sweeping the land. Rivers turning to mud. People lining up to offer prayers at dry shrines. Crops failing. A king praying alone beneath a Bodhi tree. You can almost smell the dust dot and dash another shift. This time, the market fills with foreign faces. Traders from India, diplomats from China, a few pale-skinned explorers with large hats and awkward maps. You watch the first French surveyors take sketches of temples, oblivious to the fact that their every move is already being watched from the shadows. Quirky fact: one of the first Westerners to document Angkor in detail, Henry Muart, genuinely believed that Khmer ruins were too grand to be the work of local people. He proposed they were built by a lost race, perhaps even Egyptians who wandered off course. You wonder if he ever realized how that idea said more about him than the people he studied. You step off the mosaic, dizzy now not just from what you've seen, but from the strange sensation that your own memories are being sorted behind the scenes, not erased, just filed. Dot at the edge of the platform. A group of monks sits in a circle, chanting softly. One of them, impossibly young, beckons you over. He holds out a small brass bowl filled with water. Floating on the surface is a single red seed. You're not sure what to do, but you lean over to look more closely. Dot, in that instant, you're elsewhere. A wooden house on stilts. A river glistening in the dawn light. A rooster crowing. Your own feet smaller, bare, muddy, dangling off the steps. You look around and recognize everything, even though you know it's not your life. Not really, but something in you remembers. Then it's gone. The boy monk smiles, takes back the bowl, and bows. You bow back, heart pounding. Every person here is both visitor and vendor. Some offer time, some borrow it. Others come only to watch, to relive, or to let go. One woman places a coin on a stone ledge and begins to weep, not from grief, but from relief. A man nearby closes his eyes and vanishes entirely. You pause at a carved stone gate at the far end of the market. Its frame is wrapped in flowering. Vines, and etched across the lintel is a phrase in old Khmer script. You can't read it, but you feel it. All things return. You step through. And the jungle swallows you again. As you walk, the sounds of the time market recede. The air shifts. It's cooler here. A gentle breeze rustles the canopy above. A bird calls. A monkey scolds you from a high branch. You almost laugh because you're still here, still you. But maybe not quite the same you who first stepped onto the merchant roads of Angkor. The lost city markets have changed you. Not drastically, just enough. Like a river that, after centuries, cuts a new curve into the earth. You press forward. The final market awaits. You move now through a thinning corridor of trees, the hush of the jungle broken only by the soft clicks of cicadas and the gentle drip of water from leaf to leaf. The light here has changed. It's softer, less green, almost silver. You pass. Beneath a tangle of bamboo, so dense it hums when the wind stirs. The path widens, then narrows again, then suddenly opens like a gasp into a sunken plaza of stillness. Welcome to the final marketplace. The market of echoes. It's buried, half submerged in loamy earth, as though the jungle couldn't decide whether to consume it or cradle it. Half of it remains visible, a series of concentric terraces that spiral gently downward like a stone whirlpool. At the center, there's no statue, no altar, no fountain. Just a patch of clean, dry ground surrounded by silence. Here, no one speaks. That's not a metaphor. People walk the spirals in silence. Some wear the saffron robes of monks. Others wear the worn cotton tunics of farmers or the loose trousers of traders. Some carry bundles. Others carry nothing. But none of them talk. Not even a whisper. Not even a cough. You find yourself drawn into the spiral, stepping carefully from one terrace to the next. You expect to hear your own footsteps, but you don't. The sound dies before it even reaches your ears. You begin to realize this market doesn't trade in goods, or ideas, or even time. It trades in memory. At first you think that's poetic. But then you pass a man standing perfectly still, eyes closed, arms crossed over his chest. You glance at him for only a moment, but that's enough. Suddenly, your mind is filled with the smell of fish sauce and incense. You see a bustling riverside, village, a girl in a blue scarf running toward a boat. The image is fleeting, but vivid. Not your memory, his. You've borrowed it. You keep walking. Mainstream historians agree the Khmer Empire placed enormous importance on ancestral memory. Shrines. To grandparents stood beside shrines to gods. Offerings weren't just made to the divine. They were also made to those who had shaped your very being. The farmers, the builders, the mothers who taught songs that were never written down. This market feels like an extension of that worldview. A living archive, built not with scrolls or tablets, but with consciousness itself. Fringe scholars call it a memory bank. One even argued it was a kind of early data storage system, though their papers were laughed out of peer review and quietly buried under more palatable theories. Still, you can't help but wonder, if enough people walk this spiral and leave a piece of themselves behind, wouldn't it become a form of collective memory? You reach the next ring of the spiral. A child brushes past you, barefoot and humming. The tune catches in your chest like déjà vu. You hum it under your breath, and for a moment, you see a thatched roof house in monsoon season. Your hands gripping a bowl of warm rice. Someone laughing. Again, not your memory. But real. The silence isn't oppressive here. It's sacred. It allows you to hear what normally goes unnoticed. The rustle of cotton sleeves, the creak of worn sandals, the sigh of someone remembering something too beautiful to keep to themselves. There's no bartering here. No price. You give what you can. You receive what you need. Not every memory is pleasant. Some are heavy with grief. A woman beside you is trembling, her eyes closed tight, her fists clenched. But she remains. She wants to carry it, just for a little while. You do too. You sit near the center now, legs crossed, palms open on your knees. You breathe. And slowly, a memory rises. It's your own this time. You're small, maybe 5, sitting on your grandfather's lap. He's showing you how to whistle with your fingers. The sound never comes out right. You both laugh. He smells of betel nut and star anise. You haven't thought of this in years. The memory fades. Another follows. This one isn't yours. A man standing beside a rice field at sunset. His back aches. His hands are rough, but he's smiling. His son is chasing frogs in the water. It's a quiet happiness, the kind that leaves a warm echo in your chest. Historians still argue whether the Khmer truly believed in reincarnation, or whether it was more metaphorical. Your deeds reborn in the lives of others, your work living on in every stone and seed. Maybe this market was their answer to that question. A place where nothing is truly lost, only shared. There's a carving on the inner ring of the spiral barely visible beneath the moss. You brush it gently with your fingers. It's a lotus, but the petals are not open. They're folding inward. You realize this market isn't just about remembrance. It's about return. This is the final place people came, not to trade, not to learn, but to release. To give up the burdens of memory, or perhaps to become one. A man steps into the center. He bows deeply, then lays down on the clean earth. He doesn't move. No one tries to wake him. You watch for a long time. Then you realize you've been here for hours, or maybe days. Time doesn't work the same here. You stand, A final figure approaches you. An old woman, her eyes milky with age, her smile kind but unreadable. She reaches out, places a hand on your heart. Not your chest. Your heart, Dot, and just like that, you know. It's time. You step out of the spiral. You don't look back, Dot, as the jungle closes in behind you. You feel lighter, not empty, just less burdened. As though a pack you didn't know you were carrying has finally been set down. You walk until the trees thin again, and the first golden rays of late afternoon touch your skin. You're no longer a traveler. You're part of something older, something woven, something echoing. The path winds now along the ridge of an old reservoir, one of Angkor's legendary barays. This one, though, isn't the grand western baray, whose scale could rival small seas, nor the east with its temple-centered axis. No, this one's forgotten, unnamed even on many modern maps. A modest, elongated basin choked with reeds, its ancient stone embankments softened by time and moss. You walk slowly along its edge, the water calm and perfectly still, as though afraid to ripple and disturb the hush. Dot here. The Khmer people once engineered an aquatic marvel, a living reservoir that not only caught and stored seasonal monsoon water, but distributed it, timed it, tempered it. It was agriculture, yes, but also alchemy. They weren't just watering rice, they were mastering time itself. Mainstream historians agree, water was the lifeblood of Angkor's success. Without it, no city that size in that climate could have thrived. The barays weren't just utility, they were devotion. They mirrored cosmic oceans from Hindu cosmology, with temples as Mount Meru at their center. Every splash, every irrigation trench was an offering. You dip your fingers into the water, Dot. It's surprisingly cold. Clean, too. Fish dart away like flickering shadows. The air hums with dragonflies. A fringe theory once suggested the barays had a second purpose, not just agricultural, not even spiritual, but medicinal. Some proposed that the Khmer mastered microfiltration, using natural reeds, lotus roots, and sand traps, creating sacred pools used in healing rituals. Sound far-fetched? Perhaps. But the clarity of the water here, even after centuries of neglect, gives you pause. You crouch and stare into the mirror-still surface. Dot. At first, just your face. Then, slowly, something else. A temple, reflected in perfect symmetry. A spire, rising. From the far end of the reservoir, framed by clouds tinged with firelight. You turn and there it is. A structure so elegant, it looks like it was never built, only revealed. Its name is lost. Its god forgotten. No signs mark its threshold, but your feet carry you forward. You reach the causeway, wide, worn, and flanked by kneeling Nagas whose 7 heads are chipped by time, but still noble. Their stone eyes meet yours with indifference. They've watched 1,000 pilgrims cross here. One more means little, but to you, it feels enormous. The temple is smaller than Angkor Wat, but grander in intimacy. Delicate carvings stretch across. Lintels, celestial dancers mid-spin, tigers with curling tongues, trees that bear stars instead of fruit. You brush your hand along the wall. The stone is warm from the sun, rough with age, soft with moss. Inside, the air cools immediately. The scent is ancient, sandalwood, dust, rain trapped in stone. A single chamber awaits, square and domed. Number, idols. No altar, just a pool. Sunlight slices through a small oculus above, catching the surface of the water and scattering it in delicate shards across the walls. You step closer. The pool is shallow, maybe waist deep, perfectly round. It pulses with reflected light. You sense more than know that this was a place of rebirth. Historians still argue whether the Khmer performed ritual immersion for the lay public or only for royalty and priests. But here, The lack of ornamentation, the intimacy of scale, it feels welcoming, democratic even. As if anyone could come, lay down their burden, and emerge somehow changed. You roll up your sleeves. The water is cooler than expected. Not bracing, just. Waking Dot, you step in slowly. The stone beneath your feet is smooth, almost glassy. With every inch, your body remembers something it didn't know it forgot. The way silence feels when it's not empty. The weight of breath. The slow, sacred stretch of your own spine. You sink to your knees. You close your eyes. And for a moment, just a moment, you see what they saw. An empire, held together not by force, but rhythm. Water rising and falling with lunar grace. Farmers, planting with celestial precision. Markets thriving not in chaos, but in tune. Even the temples were built like metronomes, marking time, movement, devotion. Harmony not as a luxury, but as survival. You exhale and let go. When you open your eyes, the light has shifted. The pool is gold. A breeze moves through the chamber and stirs the water with invisible fingers. The moment passes. You step out, dripping, but unbothered. You've been welcomed. Outside. The reservoir glows with evening. Frogs begin their slow, baritone chorus. A crane lifts into the air with a single beat of its wings. Everything feels slower, and yet, more awake. You continue down the path, each footstep softened by moss and dusk. You're not alone, but you're not followed. This leg of the journey is yours alone. The air thickens with the scent of frangipani. Ahead, the jungle stirs, and somewhere, hidden deep beneath root and ruin, the last market awaits. The path narrows as twilight gathers, curling violet shadows into the corners of trees. Vines lace themselves like veins along the stone remnants that emerge half-swallowed from the forest floor. Once columned pavilions, now nothing more than broken wrists of empire reaching skyward. You brush aside a strand of spider silk, ducking beneath a leaning fig tree. The air is wetter here, heavier. You feel it bead on your skin. Then there's a sound, soft, rhythmic. Not wind, not bird. Chatter. Low voices, murmuring in a tongue you don't understand, but unmistakably human. You freeze, your brain, half lulled by the dreamy pace of ruins and frogs, jolts alert. You push forward, cautious but curious. And then the trees. Break. You step into a clearing lit by glowing lanterns. Arcade, not reconstructed, not reimagined, just there. As if it had been waiting. Dozens of cloth-covered stalls lean against one another like old friends. Their owners lounge behind woven mats of spices, silks, pottery, and fruit. You catch glimpses, turmeric bright as flame, folded fans of banana leaf, jars of honey, so viscous they barely move in the heat. You blink. No one reacts to your arrival. A man in a wide-brimmed palm leaf hat counts fish with his fingers, nodding to an invisible beat. A woman with beetle-stained teeth slices a jackfruit with such precision it's surgical. Somewhere, a child giggles and tugs at a string tied to a rooster's leg. And every voice, every word is Khmer. Ancient Khmer. The kind scholars still struggle to fully translate. You don't speak it, yet somehow you understand. Or maybe it understands you. You walk slowly, savoring every detail. One scholar once proposed that Angkor's markets were designed acoustically, that their layout amplified certain sounds and dampened others. It sounds absurd until now. Despite the activity, there's no chaos here. No shouts, just harmony. Even the chickens know their role. Mainstream historians agree that Angkor's economy was complex. A blend of local trade, long-distance routes, royal control, and free enterprise. These markets weren't mere bazaars, they were civic. Arteries, some were itinerant, others fixed. Some reserved for nobles, others open to all. Rice, salt, copper, monkeys, everything had its place, its code. You pass a vendor selling tiny carved amulets. She lifts one, holds it toward you. A tiny stone figure, maybe Vishnu, maybe not etched with the finest cross-hatching you've ever seen. Its face is calm, benevolent. You reach for it, but she shakes her head. Not for sale. She places it in your palm anyway. You look up, but she's already turned back to her clay pots. A fringe theory claims that these markets also served as informal courts, that disputes were settled over curry pots and coin weights, not scrolls and magistrates. And maybe that's true. You pass two older men nodding gravely at each other over a basket of dried fish, then shaking hands. A deal struck? A grudge ended? Who knows? You pause at a stall selling paper. Scrolls, bound leaves, ink sticks, folded fans. The vendor is missing a thumb. He grins and hands you a square of bark parchment. On it, a single word : nokor.kingdom.u. Don't know if it's a reminder or a challenge. Behind you, someone calls out. A child? A singer? It's hard to tell. And then music. Not drums or gongs. Something similar. A bowed string, soft and drawn out, like a sigh you forgot you were holding. It wraps around the marketplace like fog, softening every edge. You sit, without realizing it, cross-legged on a mat strewn with flower petals and torn lotus leaves. This moment feels final. Not in a sad way. In a full way. Historians still argue whether this final phase of Angkor was truly a collapse or just a transformation. Climate, war, economic shift, each had its hand. But this market, living quietly among trees and forgotten maps, offers another answer. Maybe some parts of Angkor chose to disappear, to recede gently rather than be swallowed whole. You close your eyes. Someone places something beside you. Food. Sticky rice, wrapped in banana leaf. Sweet with palm sugar and the tiniest pinch of salt. You eat slowly. It tastes like dusk in the corner of your vision. The lanterns begin to dim. People pack up, not rushed, not urgent. Just ready. The market folds in on itself with practiced grace, as if it has done this every night for 1,000 years. Maybe it has. The last vendor, a woman with silver-streaked hair and a robe the color of night jasmine, nods at you once. Her eyes are kind. You stand. The jungle waits at the edge of the clearing, darker now, but not empty. You step toward it, your pockets a little heavier. Maybe with that amulet. Maybe with something less explainable. Behind you. The market is gone. Was it ever there? You don't ask. You don't need to. Your feet find the path again. Only one section remains. The forest seems quieter now, as if it too is reflecting. You walk slowly, your limbs pleasantly heavy. Somewhere behind you, the echo of the vanished market still lingers, warm light. Quiet chatter, a rice-sweet aftertaste still brushing your tongue. But now the world has settled into hush. Crickets begin their nightly symphony. The air smells of wet bark and distant rain. Ahead, the path widens once more. And just beyond the veil of mist and branches, stone. Endless stone. This is the final stop. You've reached the heart of Angkor Wat, but not the part tourists know. Not the sunrise platform or the Lotus Pond postcard scene. No, you're deeper inside. Somewhere the vines wrap tighter, the shadows fall longer, and the carvings stare. Back just a bit too knowingly. You place your hand against the wall, cool, damp. Lichen blooms like tiny starbursts across the ancient sandstone. A bas-relief unfolds beneath your palm. A boat procession on a mythical sea, where gods ride crocodiles and warriors dance on waves. The detailing is impossibly fine, fingernail-sized. Fish with scales, tiny expressions. The sculptor must have believed eternity would notice. And here you are, Proving them right. Mainstream historians widely agree that Angkor Wat was not just a temple. It was a cosmological diagram, a map of the universe etched in stone. Its 5 towers mirror the peaks of Mount Meru, the sacred mountain at the center of all Hindu and Buddhist cosmologies. The temple is aligned with the sun and moon, its corridors. A celestial calendar where solstices and equinoxes walk the hallways like guests. But fringe theories take this further. Some claim the temple encoded mathematical constants, that the very dimensions of its courtyards whisper secret knowledge. Golden ratios, lunar cycles, orbital mechanics hidden beneath lotus petals. Some even suggest it's a giant memory palace, a visual language meant to be walked, not read. You step deeper into the temple. Here, the world narrows. Long hallways stretch into silence. The floor is uneven. You adjust your step, careful not to trip on time-worn stones. The carvings shift too. You pass the famous churning of the ocean of milk gods and demons pulling on a serpent wrapped around Mount Mandara. A cosmic tug of war. A divine milkshake. There's a joke in there somewhere, but your breath catches too hard to say it out. Loud. The relief is alive. Not literally, of course. But, yes, maybe a little. The naga undulates with hypnotic rhythm. The eyes of Vishnu seem to follow you. You feel like you're part of the myth now, one of the figures trapped in eternal motion, pulling and pulling for nectar that may never come. You continue walking. Above you, the towers rise stone lotus buds, piercing the humid sky. You can't see them from here, but you feel their gravity. Like the architecture itself is meditating. You enter a chamber. It's small, empty, except for a single statue. A headless figure, arms broken, knees folded in perfect lotus. You sit across from it. No ceremony, just stillness. And it watches. You, despite its missing face, you take a deep breath. And another. The statue doesn't speak. It doesn't need to. Outside, the rain finally begins. Soft, then steadier. It taps against the stones like a distant drumbeat. Like the world exhaling. You wonder about the people who built this. Not kings and priests, the others. The masons, the dancers, the ones who hauled sandstone blocks with bare hands and prayers. Their names aren't carved here, but you feel them. In every groove. Historians still argue whether Angkor Wat was originally Hindu or Buddhist, whether it was ever completed, whether its function changed over time. But perhaps the better question is this. What is completion in a place meant to mimic the cosmos, where every sunrise rewrites the ceiling in light? You close your eyes. When you open them, the rain has stopped. The chamber is darker, but warmer. You stand, stretch, and step outside. The night is full now. Crickets, frogs, the low hoot of an owl far off. No tourists, no guards, just you and this kingdom of stone. You walk once more, out of the temple, into the trees. The journey is almost over. One more breath, one more whisper from the past, one final step, and then the wind down begins.